Hey, welcome. And as you can see, today we're talking about Eyes Wide Shut, Stanley Kubrick's 1999 film, and in particular, we're going to take a look at that one character, Nick Nightingale, the piano player that ends up inviting Dr. Bill Hartford to that party at the mansion. Now, the first time we meet Nick Nightingale, it's at this very fancy party at the Ziegler House that Dr. Bill Hartford and his wife Alice have gone to, and oddly, Bill says he doesn't know anyone at the party at all, until he notices the piano player. This is where Dr. Bill lets us know that he actually went to medical school with Nick, but that Nick dropped out, which is, I guess, why he's playing piano now. At that point, Bill goes over to say hello, and we find out that it's been almost 10 years since they've seen each other. The tone actually seems friendly and relaxed until a sort of serious-looking guy tells Nick he has to talk to him, almost interrupting their conversation. And it's here that Nick invites Bill to come hear him play at the Sonata Cafe, where he'll be for the next 2 weeks. The next time we see Nick is, of course, at the Sonata Jazz Club, which actually looks like a nice place, with a doorman outside and a maitre d' inside the club, all blue light and Christmas decorations. But yet, this place doesn't seem very festive, more of a downbeat nighttime place. Then Nick and Bill sit at a table and talk. It's odd because there's a round ball light on the table, which looks a bit like a crystal ball, a magical prop of sorts. And it's at this point that Nick, although he hasn't seen Bill in 10 years and didn't even know Bill was married or had a kid, he now invites Bill to an exclusive party, so exclusive that Nick doesn't even know the address yet, because they only tell him the address an hour before, and it's in a different place every time. This is already a strange situation. Nick proceeds to tell Bill that he actually plays blindfolded, and I think he's obviously trying to get Dr. Bill interested in going to this party. He's enticing him with details of how beautiful the women are and all the things that go on there. At this point, Dr. Bill sees the password to get in after Nick gets a call letting him know the info, and the password is Fidelio. It seems Dr. Bill is definitely interested, and he tells Nick he wants the address. He wants the address even though this party doesn't start till 2 a.m. Also, side note, Nick actually has a cell phone here. How many people had those in the late 90s when this film was made? And why would a jazz musician need one? It's an odd detail. Then we get to Red Cloak's party, and sure enough, there is Nick at some elaborate organ setup behind many masked people watching a ritual being performed by Red Cloak. Dr. Bill has literally walked in while they are in the middle of performing this ritual. And just like Nick said, he is actually blindfolded while the ritual with the masked women is going on behind him. I'm starting to wonder how he could know that these women are so beautiful, though, when he hasn't seen them. I mean, even though he mentioned to Bill at the Sonata Cafe that his blindfold slipped and he saw a lot and saw these women, I'm not sure I believe that. Nick is playing with his back to the women, and I don't really see any chance for the blindfold to slip. So Nick could be lying about that. The last time we see Nick, he is being apparently escorted out of the party, still blindfolded, by a large security guy wearing a gold mask. He walks right through a room of naked people dancing, but he doesn't see anything at all. Immediately after this, Bill is found out and is led down a hallway lined with a really large number of security guys, it seems. That's when Dr. Bill sees the room and finally sees Red Cloak and his attendants for the first time. But we don't see Nick Nightingale again after this. It's like he led Dr. Bill to this party, and then disappears. The next day, Dr. Bill tries to track Nick down near the Sonata Cafe and asks a waitress about Nick, and finds out the hotel that apparently Nick was staying in. Nick isn't there, but we find out that he literally checked out at 5 in the morning, which is early to leave a hotel. It's like Nick was trying to get out of town. Then the desk clerk tells Dr. Bill that two big, well-dressed guys were with Nick Nightingale, and that apparently Nick had a bruise on his face, and one of the guys paid Nick's bill for him. And then these guys drove off with Nick. A strange situation indeed. A bit ominous. Did these guys rough up Nick? Were they from the mansion party? The next scene is really an odd one, as Dr. Bill goes to Ziegler's house to talk and is confronted by Ziegler, who says he knows everything and that he saw Bill because he was at the party himself. Bill is in shock and embarrassed. Then Ziegler says, "You must have found out about the party from, quote, that prick piano player, Nick whatever his name is," unquote. To Bill's credit, he tries to take the blame on himself for crashing the mansion party and says it wasn't Nick's fault. But Ziegler says it was Nick's fault, and in fact says it was him that recommended Nick to work at Red Cloak's party, an important detail, I think. Ziegler even knows that Bill went to Nick's hotel, admitting it was him that had Bill followed, which is kind of creepy. Also, why would Ziegler even know where Nick is living? I mean, he can't even remember Nick's last name and doesn't seem to like him very much. Actually, a lot of the conversation here at Ziegler's house actually centers around Nick Nightingale. Ziegler tells us those guys who took Nick from the hotel put him on a plane to Seattle. An odd detail, since he was supposed to be playing 2 more weeks at the Sonata Jazz Cafe. Also, Ziegler admits Nick might have been roughed up. Now, to start our sum up here, I think we first have to look at the first scene we meet Nick and what his background might be. We first meet him playing piano at a very fancy New York party, so it seems like Nick must have some connections with wealthy and powerful people, because he's also Red Cloak's piano player. Then he meets up with Dr. Bill Hartford, who apparently he went to med school with, but Nick dropped out. I'm guessing this was a pretty good med school since Dr. Bill is a very successful New York doctor, or at least it seems that way. And Nick must have had pretty good grades to have gotten in, or maybe he just had connections there too. But at any rate, he drops out and oddly becomes a piano player. These details are already a bit sketchy. Nick is a talented guy, but he's a dropout. A dropout who now spends a lot of his time in the nighttime world, whether it's playing at jazz clubs or playing at Red Cloak's party. A second point I've noticed about Nick Nightingale is he's one of a number of what I'm calling unreliable narrators in this movie, and there are a bunch. So many characters in this film seem to be lying or playing games. Ziegler is another one, pretending he doesn't really remember Nick's name when he literally recommended him to play Red Cloak's party and knows what flight he'll be on. I don't buy it. And Nick is also an unreliable narrator when he is trying to entice Dr. Bill Hartford into going to the mansion party of Red Cloak. He says he's seen all these beautiful women and that his blindfold slipped, and he's seen everything that goes on at the party. I don't believe it and outright think Nick is lying here. We see him walked through the party blindfolded, escorted the whole time by a security guy. He couldn't have seen anything. So, who is Nick Nightingale? Well, he seems like a character who is slightly sketchy and is kind of living on the edge a little bit. But he's also well connected, playing fancy society parties in Manhattan. The most important thing about Nick is that he has an entree into the ultra-exclusive world of the Mansion cult, and is apparently their favorite piano player, since this wasn't his first time playing for the cult. Why do they like him so much? Well, maybe one of the reasons is he is able to bring in new people like Dr. Bill Hartford, because I definitely think that was a setup. Maybe Nick's main job is a guy who scouts out new members to bring in, more than it is being a musician. But Kubrick definitely leaves us with some questions about our mysterious piano player, Nick Nightingale. Well, that's my new video about the piano player from Eyes Wide Shut, Nick Nightingale. Hope you liked it. Now, I actually will be out of town next week, so won't be able to do a video, but I'm definitely going to be back the week after that with another one. Also, it would help out my little channel if you hit that subscribe button. But either way, my name is Shim, and thank you for spending time with me. Have a great day.